like Cleveland. You want to be a boss? That's how you be a boss. I did. I made a mistake. Nobody in the history of the world that has more fun than me. I look, whatever, but what a great weekend. And I thank all you Boiler fans for a great weekend. I thank you Indiana basketball fans, you Indiana basketball players, you Indiana basketball coaches for a great, great time. I get tired of looking at this bald head. I hate my bald head, so I'm going with a hat today. I'm going with a red and white hat today because I'm tired of my bald head. I can't stand the way I look. And there's nothing I can do about it. All right, let's get right into it. First things first, make no mistake. Make no mistake, Alabama is at best tone deaf. At worst, they are evil. Brandon Miller, I'm starting to think has no soul. Brandon Miller, the player, I'm starting to think has no empathy for some people who he was involved with murdering, one, their mother, and two, boyfriend's daughter, sister, aunt, whatever. I don't think these people have any empathy. I understand that kids will be kids, but this is a 20-year-old that was involved in a murder, however you want to say he was involved. I got to tell you, and maybe this is about being 60, not 20. Maybe this is about being Catholic. I don't know. But honest to God, if I slight somebody, it wakes me up at 3 in the morning. I woke up at 3 in the morning after going to the Purdue, Indiana game wondering, did I slight? Did I treat everybody okay? This guy, however you want to slice it, if he has any empathy or a conscience, has to at least think a little bit, I brought a gun to a murder. He has to think that, yet it doesn't seem to faze him. And I'll give you an example. So let's show his pat down to start the game. All right. So that's his little pat down. And people are saying, well, it's what he does. It's a thing to get into the octagon. It's, okay, fine, that's great. That's wonderful. But I got to tell you, I got to tell you, at some point, don't you have to be kind of, sort of, a little bit, just a little bit, tone, what's the opposite of deaf? Tone hearing, and hear what's going on? Don't you have to be a little bit? People are giving all kinds of excuses, and I'm cool with it. You can give all the excuses you want, but don't you have to just a little bit say, hey, you know what? Yeah, we shouldn't do that this time. But he's such an idiot. He's so entitled. He's so into himself, and he may be just evil. He might just be evil. People get mad at the word thug, and my answer to that is people that commit crimes against others and have no empathy. Tony Soprano is the perfect thug. He commits crimes against others and has zero empathy for those crimes. All right? So, you know what? The truth of the matter is, I look at this and I say to myself, well, this dude must not have any empathy. This dude must not. I've not seen, and maybe he cannot because of legal stuff. I'm really sorry about what happened. I've seen none of this. So let's show you after the game what this guy did, Brandon Miller. So Brandon Miller changes his Twitter handle to a pat down. A pat down. So before, I think it was the mother and the kid, and now it's the pat down. That's how evil this guy is. And I know we're not supposed to say it, and don't tell me he's just a kid. He's 20 years old. David Hookstead on our OutKick is one of the great writers in the country, and he has an article on it. Don't tell me this is a 20-year-old kid. This is just evil. I swear to God. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. That's the only thing I can tell you. There's no conscience here. There's no sense of, man, you know what? I always look at the victim. I always think about the victim. But I was a scared kid. I was a very, very scared kid. So I think of the victim. I was scared to be robbed. I was scared. I got my bike stolen. I got it a couple times. You know, I got surrounded in a bathroom at Gary Wallace High School. They were going to beat the crap out of me. I had to bust through hitting the youngest, the smallest guy. And I was only like 12 years old. I mean, I was a scared kid. So maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe I'm oversensitive about the victim. But it doesn't seem like in this case anybody gives a rat's blank about the victim. Certainly not this guy. So this guy does his little pat-down deal, and we have a graphic on what Nate Oats said. Here's a little pat-down deal. We can show it. So, again, there's a pat-down. I think that's something that's been going on all year. I don't really know. I don't watch our introductions. I'm not involved in them. I'm drawing up plays during that time. Regardless, it's not appropriate. It's been addressed, and I can assure you it definitely will not happen again the remainder of the season. Nate Oats can't assure me of nothing. Nate Oats is always playing defense here. But I will tell you why Nate Oats is playing Brandon Miller. Nate Oats is playing Brandon Miller for the long game. Nate Oats has a murder on his hands. And you know, in the world of college basketball, everything is about recruiting. Everything. Nate Oats has to figure out, how am I coming out the backside of this? Well, Nate Oats, you mark my words, is going to be a hero to the AAU community because they stood by a guy that brought a gun to a murder. That's the world of college basketball. I'm telling you right now, this will not affect Miller's draft stock. This will actually help Oats down the road that he is saying, hey, look, I'm playing him. Now, let me also say this. I have been a big proponent of don't apologize. Oats obviously feels like he's doing the right thing. The university does. However, I will give you a different perspective. I had a chat with my boss one time, and I said, hey, look, what's the biggest difference in being a boss of a company? He said there's two things. One, mainly, and we were talking about hiring and firing, and we went to firing, and he said, look, now in firing, two things. One, you hope and you guard against somebody coming back and shooting up the business when they get fired, and that's a real concern. The second is you don't want to be sued. So Oats and Alabama don't want to be sued by Miller. That's fine, but they're also playing the long game. This helps Nate Oats in recruiting. He gets street cred in recruiting. It's not like mommies and daddies care about a murder. They want their little boy to be in the NBA, period. And Oats, by standing up for this, is doing exactly that for Brandon Miller. I'm just telling you. So now he has deactivated his Twitter account, Brandon Miller. Probably a good thing. When you have no empathy, when you might just be evil, I don't know, because I've not heard him say a thing about the victims. I think it's a pretty good idea to lay low, other than actually have a heart and speak on the horrible tragedy and try to bring a little bit of comfort to the family. But that's just me. Jay Billis said that, quote, Alabama has done everything right in this situation because Brandon Miller has rights. I like Jay Billis. Jay's fine. Worked with him. Great. But I got to tell you, I think that's misguided. Alabama has admitted to making their own mistakes. Nate Oats has admitted to saying things the wrong way. They have admitted to not doing it right. And in terms of rights, I got to tell you, rights go out the window when you're involved in a triple murder. Why do we acquiesce to 18 to 23-year-olds? Why do we pander to them? Why do we kiss their backsides? He said the rights of the university, protecting the university, aren't as important as an individual rights, and I say that's crap. I say let's protect our institutions from predators on campus. Let's protect our institutions from guys that will take a gun and shoot somebody. Let's protect our institutions from people, the highest profile non-football player on campus, patting himself, getting patted down, and then mocking the victims. See, I think institutions should be protected from that. It is not a right to play basketball at Alabama. It is a privilege, and a heck of a privilege. I'm protecting the university. I'm protecting the other students. I'm protecting the RAs. I'm protecting the faculty. I'm protecting the dorm workers. I'm protecting the cafeteria workers. I'm protecting people that are on the frickin' street, on the strip at Alabama, from getting 11 shots fired out by your basketball team. Or your basketball team at least being there and precipitating the event. That's what I'm protecting. I get it. You're a lawyer. In the world of broadcasting right now in college basketball, I've told you this, it is a wasteland for diversity hire. Hire everybody, blah, blah, blah. And it is a scared to death group of white people. Scared to death. I've lived in the world about it. I know exactly. You tiptoe. Bill has started this back when he tried to outlaw the word camp, said it was racist to talk about a player and his camp, which is complete pandering crap. He doesn't believe that, but he said, in fact, I would argue Billis didn't even believe what he said the other day, but it was safe. And safe is what white dudes in the basketball media want because it's mostly an African-American dominated sport, and white dudes are getting shoved out, and they can really get shoved out by anything that any African-American group gets mad about you saying. So that's why you hear things like Billis. He don't believe that. That's why you've not heard one person other than folks on OutKick talk about this. Not one. Not one. In a sensible way. So there you go. That drive you nuts. It's so insane to me. And Alabama fans are actually protecting this. They're actually defending this. Now, I got to tell you, winning is important. There's no question about it. But not when 3 of your players are involved in a murder of a young woman. That, ladies and gentlemen, is inexcusable to defend on any level. And I believe Bill has said, well, how good the player is doesn't matter, and that's a load of crap. We all know, kid's a walk-on, kid's a bit player, he's gone yesterday, and the coach pats himself on the back. This kid is a star. This kid's a draft choice. This kid's the best American basketball player, or at least the best basketball player in the NCAA. He will play. It's simpler than that. Now, Nate Oats, I've said this before, and I'll say this again. Nate Oats is playing the long game. Nate Oats is also chicken blank. I just can't stand chicken blank coaches. I can't. You know, I gave up my career to do the right thing. Whether it was at West Virginia, leaving, $3.5 million, telling the president, you're not threatening me, or it was Indiana, standing up to a drug culture and losing games because guys were either suspended or sad or whatever. And I got to tell you, so I have given, and I'm a bad guy. I got called by a guy named Howie Deneroff, who is he's the head of Westwood One Radio, where he also told my agent I'm the best broadcaster. They got too much drama. I'm like, really? Too much drama? Okay. Too much drama, really? Like giving away bikes? But I digress. That's my own bitterness. But I got to tell you, when I watch chicken blank coaches, I don't like it. Indiana, baby, and I'm going to be talking about this all day. Coaches out there. There's a lot of guys that coach AAU. There's a lot of guys that have these little sites. I got to tell you, if you want to know how to help your team, Mike Woodson in the second half of the Indiana game called 2 of the best timeouts you're ever going to see. And I got to tell you, it ain't close. Mike Woodson of Indiana basketball called 2 timeouts. One time a player was falling down, and the other time there was going to be a tie-up. Woodson jumped off the bench, called timeout. And I got to tell you, they scored both times. It stopped any momentum from a steal or a jump ball, and it was awesome. I like me better without a hat today. I just saw myself. I don't like it. He called 2 of the best timeouts. Now, nobody's going to understand this. I sat in press row drinking beers with my buddy Mike, my buddy Billy Parks. I looked over. There's rows of media guys. It literally, you ever see those Antifa guys when they take their masks off? They're all like little entitled white dudes. It looked like an Antifa rally sans mask. It looked like something that would happen in southern Indiana in the 60s in Martinsville. And they're all dorks. And they'll never understand what I'm about to tell you. First half, game changed. See that kid there, Zach Edey? Ball's going inside 3 straight times, I believe. Bucket, bucket, bucket. You could see Indiana. Their body language was shrinking. Their belief was shrinking as Purdue went up 8. Indiana doesn't make a bucket on the other side. Purdue gets a stop. Here comes Purdue. For some reason, their freshman guard, Braden Smith, it wasn't one on nobody. It was he pulled up from beyond the three-point line. And I got to tell you, airballed it. I turned to my buddy, play the game, just changed the game. Indiana went down, as often happens, layup. They missed, layup. Indiana went from 8 to 2, and the game never got back in Purdue's control. I used to do a radio show in Indy, and I used to talk about the play that changed the game before the end of the game. And one time, Bill Polian, the general manager of the Colts, called in. He goes, you know what? Let's keep talking about that. And he gave me a bunch of different examples in different games. But I'm telling you, you won't read one word about it. The game changed. Purdue never got the game to where Indiana was shook. Purdue never got the game back to 8 points. Never. It was about 4 or 5 minutes to go in the first half. And that was the play of the game for Indiana. All right. A lot of stuff going on. Jennifer, I did you a favor. The great Jonathan Hutton is joining us. Jonathan Hutton does the show OutKick 360. Nobody's smarter. Nobody's more handsome. Nobody has a better voice. We all aspire to be Jonathan Hutton. Here's the deal with Jonathan Hutton, that old adage. Men want to hang with him and women want to be with him. Ladies and gentlemen, the poster child for that, OutKick 360's the great Jonathan Hutton. I am one of the great
Dakich.
introductors of all time.
That was outstanding. That's one that Clay Travis will be very jealous of. So congratulations on topping any introduction we could give him.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, Clay got his own introductions this weekend in Alabama. I saw the helmets. Clay Travis. Give me your deep thoughts on the whole thing, including the pat down, and then the kid puts it on his Twitter. What are we doing here in Alabama?
Well, first, I've seen Clay, go after Crimson Tide fans throughout his entire career. I have seen Clay then walk through the Winfrey Hotel and sign autographs and take photos with Crimson Tide fans in the same year. And that will continue to happen on SEC campuses. So nothing to worry about there. This whole saga of how Alabama has handled this, Dan, it's sad, it's maddening, it's frustrating, and confusing, quite frankly, because of the stance they're taking versus what we have been told and what we're seeing. And game by game, highlight by highlight or low light, as we're seeing here with the pat down during introductions, it gets worse. I mean, optically, it looks worse. It's spitting in the face of those that are saying that he shouldn't be playing right now because he brought a weapon to a crime scene at the behest of one of those that are being charged with capital murder. It should end right there. And, earlier last week, Nate Oats was saying that, we knew about this. Later in the week, as details emerged, you have Greg Byrne, the athletic director, along with Nate Oats, saying he's just going to go along with the AD's statement now. Greg Byrne saying he didn't know about the text message that came from Darius Miles, sent to Brandon Miller to bring it back, bringing the gun back. But they still played him that same evening. So that's telling everyone that even if they knew that detail, he was going to be playing. We're not stupid. And now you have the SID telling reporters to ask about the game only. Again, trying to brush it under the rug. Ridiculous, stupid, but also just straight up insulting to the family of Kamia Harris, who died, 23-year-old mother who died in this shooting while Alabama goes about this. And Brandon Miller, who's a great player, doesn't look like a great human being by his antics and his post on social media.
I'm starting to think Brandon Miller is soulless. I am. I've not heard him, and maybe it's because of legal reasons, but I've not heard him say one thing, you're not gonna pacify the people. You're not gonna be able to soothe their hurt. But I've not seen him do anything other than kind of throw it in the face. Whether it is, on his Twitter thing, patting people down, whether it's patting people down. I've not seen one even remote attempt by this guy to be empathetic towards the victim's family. Not one. I'm starting to think the dude is evil.
Yeah. I mean, and, you've got Nate Oats who's saying, wrong place, wrong time, and all these, leaving the victim out of it completely. And for those that are saying, he didn't know what he was doing, he didn't know what it was going to be used for, the intent's not there. I mean, legally, that's correct. That's why they're not charging him with the crime.
Yeah.
They can't prove anything on that. But it is an undisputed fact from his attorney to Alabama to law enforcement to those at the scene, coming from the two that were charged in this, that he brought the weapon to the crime scene. So I don't know how you defend that when there's not a single side that is disputing that fact. And that alone tells us that, he shouldn't be playing right now. He was a part of this. Even if it's in some small way, he's a part of this. There's no defending that, in my opinion.
I agree. I mean, and they keep stepping in it, and look, they keep winning. So winning is the great panacea. Came out today, the Bears, who knows? I know Schefter's got to get his clicks and write his articles. Bears trading the number one pick. I assume they will. I assume they'll get multiple picks, get some linemen, some defensive players, and just go with Justin Fields. That's what makes sense to me. What is your thought?
Well, they should. I mean, you have Ryan Poles, who's the GM there. He's going into his second season, I believe, as the general manager. And Eberflus is the head coach, defensive-minded head coach. But look, they've invested a lot in Justin Fields and what they inherited. And they have around $99 to $100 million in cap space. They have a chance to spend. They have a chance to invest in their young quarterback. And I think now's the time to do that while also trading down. It doesn't have to be late in the first round. They can trade down, still remain in the top 10 and still get a high draft pick that's going to really enhance their offense, build around Justin Fields while, selling the number one pick to a team that's, unlike last year, I think there's going to be a team that's going to really climb the ladder to try to jump Houston for the number one overall selection. Whether that's Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, who knows? With the Combine starting this week, Dan, I think the talk is going to be about Richardson and Levis and where they sit, because I don't think they're going to be nitpicked the same way Young and Stroud will with the measurements and the height, weight, speed, all that. I think we see a lot of hype around Will Levis this week. I'm not buying it. It will circle back around to Bryce Young. And, I mean, I think it's a foregone conclusion that you can make that Chicago is willing to deal out a number one because they have the young quarterback on a rookie deal, and you have a chance to enhance your roster around him and not pay your quarterback all that much and not have to restart the clock on the rookie. I don't get the sense that there's any one quarterback that this isn't the Josh Rosen, Kyler Murray draft where after a year you're on to Kyler Murray because you have a new head coach. I don't think that's it. I think Chicago's going to get a great offer for number one.
Here's would be my question. My question would be, is Jalen Carter or Will Anderson, are they good enough to be game changers? Are they good enough to be, Aaron Donald or the Bosa's? Because if they are, that would be the only way I wouldn't trade the number one pick. That's it. That's the only way.
unless you trade with Indy, who's at 4, and you can get one of those two guys at 4.
Yeah.
You know, like that.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. If Indy's climbing up to get the quarterback, Houston's going quarterback, and then you're guaranteed one of those two guys with the 4th overall pick. I mean, that's the game within the game, and it's a gamble. It's a risk. So what's the drop off after Jalen Carter and Will Anderson for the top defensive player from there? And you have to be willing to go that direction if you're going defense, or if you're going the top wide receiver or top O lineman, whatever it might be. I think, to me, the top defensive players can be there around the 4th or 5th pick, Dan, unlike past years where the value's been higher at pass rush than it has been at quarterback. I think that we see a big run on QB.
No, I agree with that. I mean, I think that, you know, if Indy, and if I were Indy, there is nobody, and this may sound stupid to people, but both ways it may sound stupid, because Shaq Leonard has been hurt, and before he got hurt, he professed that he wasn't sure that he still loved the game. This year, there was a massive slide in Quentin Nelson's play. And those are the two. Maybe I wouldn't trade Jonathan Taylor. I don't know. But there isn't anybody on the Colts that I wouldn't package with that 4th pick. There just isn't. So I think the Colts will do the best they can do to get that number 1 pick. But who would you take? Like, just based on what you know and you see, who would you take as the number 1 pick if you were the Colts at quarterback?
I would go Bryce Young, number 1. I realize that the height is an issue, but man, watching him step up and play week after week across not just the SEC, but in big moments, big games, college football playoff, wherever it might be, there's more consistency there than the other QBs. C.J. Stroud, while he was fantastic in the college football playoff, I can't take anything away from him there. But there were games last year where I didn't see that same type of play. Still a great player. And then Will Levis was average in what should have been a phenomenal season for him in year number 2 in that offense. And a chance, even when you have Rodriguez who goes down with injury, their best player on offense at running back. Well, if Will Levis is that good, if he's number 1 overall, he should be elevating the play of the guys around him. I didn't see that. I saw playmakers around Will Levis, not this past year, but the year prior, stepping up and making big plays. And I think Levis is he's a first-round guy. He's not number 1 overall. And I think Bryce Young is. I like what I've seen from Young compared to the others. And look, I mean, the leadership qualities and all that, they're going to figure all that out on which guys are the best. I just look at what I've seen in college football, and to me, and the direction that the league is going anyway, to me, it's Bryce Young, and then there's everyone else below him.
You know, I swear to God this is going to happen. I swear to God Will Levis is going to be like the All-American boy. He's going to throw the ball 80 yards. He's going to answer every question right. He's going to blah, blah, and he's going to move up. I swear to God, Jonathan, I can see it coming. I can see Mitchell Trubisky in my rearview mirror, and in front of me is Will Levis.
Levis, though, he's got 2 – so I don't disagree with what everyone says about all the measurements, the traits. He looks the part. But I did not see that number 1 quality. But that's what we're debating here. He can be a top 5 or a top 10 pick. I didn't see the number 1 surefire quality that we have seen from guys in college like Andrew Luck or Trevor Lawrence, right? Those guys. To me, Bryce Young is in that category this past season after winning the Heisman and then what he did this past year. Levis has the chance to develop into that, and I think he's ahead of where Richardson is from Florida. But if you're going to draft traits and develop, to me, I don't do that at number 1. Number 1 pick's got to be ready to go, and I think, especially in today's league where coaches have about 3 years to prove it, or GTFO, you need your guy to jump in there and be ready. And I think Young is far ahead of where Levis is currently for that type of role, whether that's Indianapolis, Houston, Chicago, wherever it may be at number one, it needs to be Bryce Young and the rest. Levis is he's intriguing if you get him, I think, paired with a veteran and you let them battle it out in camp. Like the top 10, top 15 pick. And I think he goes top 5, top 6. And I think Carolina at worst is where he ends up, where they currently select, and they could move up too. So he's not a bad player. He's very, very good. He's just not number one.
Is Richardson? I can see the Colts. The Colts like to outsmart everybody. You saw him more than me. I saw him first game of the year. He was great. Like, he was tremendous. I think they beat Utah. It was like, wow. And then I couldn't wait to watch him the next week, and he wasn't the same guy. And I don't know if he was the same guy all year, but let me ask you, how good is he?
He's a freak athlete. I mean, he's when you see him, I think he's going to check a lot of boxes. He's very inconsistent for me. Throwing the football, he misses it. There were several games this past year where he's missing wide open guys. Now, he'll make some big throws too, but there's just that little piece missing that separates that top tier to the next group, and he's in that next group of first-round talent. Where I think he should have stayed in one more year, especially in the days of NIL and everything going on. I get why you want to go pro if you're a first-round pick, though, and he is. The combine is going to be his week. I mean, he's going to crush it this week in Indianapolis, Dan. But I didn't see him take over the SEC the way he took over that game against Utah, and that's the issue. I look at the totality of everything instead of glimpses of highlights that SportsCenter will feed us this week, or NFL Network for that matter. And I don't think he's in the same class as Young or Stroud.
Are we missing anybody? Is there somebody out there that's like, well, wait a second here? You know what I mean? I mean, like, I always, one of the things I really liked about our radio show in Indy was we did the show from the combine, and you got to talk to different players. And, but is there anybody in the quarterback group that is like, okay, watch this guy?
This week he's not going to be able to go through the workouts, but the medicals matter for Hendon Hooker. He's coming off the torn ACL, and he was going to win the Heisman if he doesn't get hurt. And Dan, he had a big brace on his knee when he visited with us in Arizona for the Super Bowl. And he says he's going to be ready for the start of camp, for the start of the season. But more than anything, the combine is great for the medical reports because teams can actually get a great read on your rehab and where your team doctors believe a player would be, both now and future injury. And that means a ton for Hendon Hooker on where he's going to be selected. Could he sneak into the back of the first round? I think he's a second-round or third-round pick based on the knee. And then if the medicals come back great, he could be one of those value picks like we've seen in the past with Lamar Jackson going 32, right? Like there's value at quarterback late in the draft because you get the fifth-year option on a first-round pick. And if Hendon Hooker is going to be someone you need to wait a year on, or you're going to slow play, you want the fifth-year option so you're not losing him in 3 years when he actually does have the ability to play. At worst, this guy's a backup QB, a long-time backup QB. At best, he's going to be a solid starter in the league. And I'm intrigued to see his trajectory this week, to see what happens with the feedback they're going to get, because he's not going to be able to work out. But the tape speaks for itself. He met with practically every team at the Senior Bowl, and he was an exception at the Senior Bowl because he was hurt. Normally, they don't allow injured players to show up and just go through the gauntlet of interviews. They did with Hooker because he had such an exceptional year.
Where is Joe Milton back at Tennessee?
He's back, yeah. He's like his 8th year, I believe, in the college football. Yeah, he's back with his final year of eligibility, although I hesitate because who knows. But yeah, he's back, and he was roommates with Hooker in college. So it's now his show, or at least it's his chance to grab it and take over before Nico comes in, the young QB that they've paid from California, before he gets there.
You know, the thing I would love about Hendon Hooker, if I were a GM, now the medicals are the most important thing, I get it, but I love the fact how he improved. He went from good, but he took over the team. And the team was good enough to beat Alabama, good enough to get in the top 5 when he was rolling. That would mean a lot to me. It would, Jonathan. That would mean a ton to me.
It's the intangibles, the leadership. And by the way, I think there's the perception that he's the one read guy, like the the head coach is in the quarterback's ear saying, here's your read, go, and then they snap the ball and go. I think he reads the field much better than what people give him credit for. That's something that he's going to have to prove on tape. And I think that's what he did at the Senior Bowl. And I think the leadership qualities, too, of he wasn't participating in those practices, Dan, but I think coaches and scouts and GMs at the Senior Bowl got a glimpse of what he's been like on the practice field at Tennessee. Yeah. And, he comes in, he transfers, Josh Heupel takes over. This is after Hooker had just transferred from Virginia Tech. Joe Milton comes in, beats him out in like 17 days. They go with Joe Milton over Hooker. Milton gets hurt. Hooker comes in against Florida. The rest is history. And they take off the following week against Missouri and, beat the brakes off of the Tigers. And then they're off to the races. 8 wins. And then last year's superb season with the bowl victory that he didn't have the chance to play in. The sky's the limit for Hendon Hooker at the next level. 25 years old, though. That'll be a knock if you're looking for the pessimist view on why you wouldn't draft him, because he's already into age-wise contract number 2. But I absolutely put that aside for a team that already has a veteran starter. A great case would be here in Tennessee with the Titans. Tannehill at best, probably another year, and then you have a chance to find your next guy. He's one of those type players at the QB position that I would keep an eye on for those roles.
Hey, last thing. When you look at college basketball and you look at Alabama, and I'm all excited because Indiana is playing the way you play when you win a championship, which is don't make mistakes at the end of the game. Where does Tennessee fit in all this?
They have the chance to go on a deep run. Their defense, Dan, they can play with anybody. It's tough to score 60 on them. But I don't know when it comes down to not can a guy make a big bucket, but when you've got to have that play. When it's time, when you're down by 2 and you've got to get that score because the score is 58-56. I don't know on a consistent basis that they have that guy on the offensive end. Tremendous job on defense. I think that's holding me back from saying, this is different. This year's different. And they've been very up and down with their play, spotty at times from the free throw line. I think that's the issue with them. And also, based on their seed, they could be all over the board with how they finish the season and what happens in the tournament for the SEC. I like the fact that they're in the mix, maybe not for a national title as I see that team right now, but it's time. It's time for them to capitalize on what has been strong efforts during the season. They need to carry that momentum in because normally what has happened is they're not playing their best and they catch a team that had to win their way in as an at-large, and they catch the team that's on fire and playing well. Now, it didn't matter last year. They won the SEC tournament, but they still, I think, were seated where they were prior to even playing that game against A&M. So I don't think it mattered. I think the committee already had them slotted where they were going to be. They've got to figure out a way to get momentum back and carry it over to the tournament. Otherwise, I think it's more of the same. I think it's a Sweet 16 type team at best.
Appreciate you, brother. Look forward to talking to you today. Thanks, my friend.
Yep. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate you.
Yep. We'll be right back. We got Mike Woodson at Indiana called the 2 best timeouts I've ever seen. We'll talk about it when we come back.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life.
ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
So the higher that number can be, the better you are with the committee. It's really that simple.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really got to lean into the turns.
He's got incredible taste in which media figures he listens to.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
Why are we going through Melania's goods? Don't make Brittany Griner out to be some type freedom fighter. Shouldn't there be a little bit of common sense? Let's roll them, big boy. What do you got?
They want to find someone to be the face of domestic terrorism, and they want it to be a right-wing Trump supporter. Don't let them entrap you into doing something dumb. But they were hyper-rational. They looked at the data, and they said it makes no sense for me to submit to this COVID shot mandate.
Get the shot or you can't go to your brother's wedding. Get the shot or you can't go to your daughter's graduation. Get the shot or else.
So Aaron Rodgers can ruin the Jets. Damian Lillard went insane. And college hoops was out of its mind. And Tommy Fury beat the crap out of Jake Paul. All that right now. Indiana, we've talked about 79-71. I got to tell you, it was a great night. I was respectful of Purdue fans, and they were awesome. They were absolutely awesome. Man, I had a blast. Went to 9 Irish Brothers, but here's the deal. Indiana, go right now if you would like and put money on Indiana to make the Final Four. Here's why. Mike Woodson's coaching his brains out. He called the 2 best timeouts I've ever seen, and it stopped the run or the momentum of 2 Purdue defensive plays and, ladies and gentlemen, got buckets for Indiana. That's not number 1, although he is coaching. I got on him way back. He got off the couch, got out of the sauna, and started coaching. Number 2, they don't make mistakes at the end of the game. I thought Indiana was going to lose. I told you Jackson Davis a little banged up. You saw it in his play. And if he gets more banged up, you take this back. But they don't make mistakes at the end of the game. Now, they're immature. They may lose to Iowa tomorrow. We'll get to Iowa in a minute. But the truth of the matter is they don't lose games at the end with mistakes. There is a saying in coaching, victory favors the team making the fewest mistakes. Indiana doesn't make mistakes. Arizona State on a half quarter beat Arizona at Arizona. Bobby Hurley got it done. It was legitimately a half-court shot at the buzzer. Bam. It's pretty good college hoops weekend. I'm going to go down to Iowa and Michigan State. True story, had a parlay. Had UConn, they won. Watching Iowa, this game, I turned it off. I turned it off with, 20, 40 seconds to go. It was a 10-point game. I turned it off. I text my buddy, hey, you're welcome. We hit the parlay. He texts me back. He goes, hey, dummy. He didn't say that. He called me something worse. It's in overtime. I could not believe it. Now, the announcers are really good, Kevin Brown and Robbie Hummel, but neither of them have coached, and they acted like this was some miraculous thing, which it was. But when you coach, this has happened to you. 1998, playing Akron, down 13, a minute 4 to go at home. I'm going to say it again. Down 13, a minute 4 to go at home. Guess what happens? We take the lead with 3 seconds. I only have 4 players. 2 guys got hurt, everybody else fouled out. Guess what? Akron hits a half-court shot to win it. Swear to God, it was unbelievable. So if you're a coach, you've seen this, and it stays with you. So the next time you're at a game and you're yelling for the walk-on to come in with 2 minutes to go or a minute to go and a 10-point lead, shut up. Shut up. That was me looking at the stat sheet like, what? Look at that. 13-point lead, minute 34 to go. Lost. Ladies and gentlemen, listen to this. How many of you had this? I'm going to go to the YouTube chat. How many of you guys had Michigan State and 5.5? I did. Which means, if you look at this, with a minute and a half to go, have an 18.5-point lead. That's gambling. That is a bad beat. I'm up 18.5, minute and a half to go. I'll take it every time. I'll take it every stinking time, won't you? Whap, 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 whap. Can we show the great Fran McCaffrey? We're going to get into him later on. But Fran Khan lost his mind and stared at Kelly Pfeiffer, one of the nicest human beings alive. That's the official. He stood there with his big fat belly, McCaffrey did. See the belly protruding? And stared at him. Look, you got to understand, Fran McCaffrey wasn't a tough guy when he was a player. He was kind of, we used to call, well, I'm not going to say we used to call, a dribbler. He shot the ball. And now, all of a sudden, he gets into his 60s and he's a tough guy. Good for Pfeiffer. Good for him not exasperating the situation. But I got to tell you, so a friend of mine, head of officials, longtime head of officials, his name is John Adams. He basically is the godfather of officiating right now. So John, I'm going to read this to you. John says this. John's like, hey, there's two schools of thought here. One of the schools of thought here is you let this idiot keep acting like an idiot. And the other school of thought here is you give him and you toss him. So Pfeiffer did a great job here. A great job. He waited, stared at him, and then when he took 2 steps forward, well, McCaffrey had to leave. McCaffrey wasn't going to fight, obviously, and he didn't want to technically in a bad spot. Iowa fans are such idiots. Now, you got to understand Iowa. I remember Steve Alford telling me it's like a cult. It's like a freaking cult. The cult of Iowa is defending this guy. I mean, it is the weirdest. It's the children of the corn. The children of the corn are defending McCaffrey, and I got to tell you, it's awesome. We'll get into that a little more later. Damian Lillard lost his mind yesterday. He became the 8th player to score 70 points or more in a game. The dude went stupid, as we call it. The dude went incredibly stupid. Like, leave him alone. He's going stupid right now. Here's what he did. Listen up. Listen up, kids. 22 of 39, 13 of 22 from the three-point line, 6 assists, 6 rebounds, 71 points. There you go. Damian Lillard, our hero, our stud, our star. I like Damian Lillard. Like, I'm starting to watch the NBA because I'm starting to figure out how I can gamble and win at it. But it's all good. It's all good, and I like him, and away we go. But 71, you got to. Come on. I mean, let's be honest. Anybody drops over 40, we got to talk about it. And if you watch the NBA, it is truly unwatchable. However, when a guy drops 71, we talk about it. All right, Manny Machado. Excuse me. Manny Machado, who will never win anything. He is a I. Guy. He says, yeah, I don't care about the new rules. I'll probably start with an 0-1 count. That's fine. Because he's an idiot. But he's not a financial idiot. 11 years, $350 million. I am willing to take bets that even though they have Juan Soto and Manny Machado and that clown Tatis, I am willing to bet they never win nothing. I will bet anybody they don't win squat. Manny Machado, I got 2 words for you, my backside. Oh, I don't care about the pitch clock. I'm going to do that. Well, you're an idiot. Huh? That's what we do here at OutKick. We play it straight. Social media star turned boxer, Jake Paul. No, let me get to Aaron Rodgers first. Joe Klecco, who is now we have to listen to because somehow, some way, this guy got in the Hall of Fame. Like, I got no idea. But it doesn't matter what I say. But somehow, some way, Joe Klecco gets into the Hall of Fame. All right, great. Yay, Rod, go fight, win. Now we got to listen to you. It's like a college basketball player. A college basketball player we got to listen to, and then they go away, and we don't have to listen to them no more. But Joe Klecco says that Aaron Rodgers could absolutely ruin the Jets locker room. Now, let me ask you a question here. Can I ask you a question? What's the Jets locker room? The franchise youth, he said that in Green Bay when Rodgers didn't have the perfect arrangement. His approach became condescending. I see a guy like Derek Carr, who is an all-pro. He hasn't been an MVP, but he's had some great years. I just can't see them going after a guy that has all his years, had it his way, and then when it doesn't turn out, he goes dark. I just can't see it. This is literally the stupidest thing you're going to hear. But I expect stupid things from big, stupid football players, particularly when they get in the Hall of Fame, because now we've got to listen to them. Now we got to, like, all right, I can't see him coming back in the huddle and lambasting Wilson for running the wrong right. It's not going to fit. I don't see it. Really? Well, maybe since, I don't know, Joe Willie Namath, maybe they haven't had that in their locker room, Joe Klecco, and they need it. This is one of the dumbest things that I have heard in terms of winning games. I don't think Rodgers is a fit with young guys. I relate this to myself. No, well, see, now we got to listen to Joe Klecco talk about himself when nobody cares. Joe Klecco was good in movies. I relate this to myself. We came up as a young team. We started winning. Why was it a good fit? All of us, because we all worked together and came up together. What'd you win? Aaron Rodgers is absolutely going to elevate any franchise that he goes to. And listening to guys that are used to losing from teams that are used to losing just isn't my bag. I'm sorry. It just is not my bag. It's not. I know we got to listen to him. I know we got to listen. But when guys are used to losing, it's like here in Indianapolis. I want you to think about this, you Colts fans. Oh my God, we're going to lose Bubba Patron or whatever. Are you insane? Are you insane? Get every single coach out of Indianapolis that participated in that mess. If you are used to losing, get out. Get them out. Gone. Joe Klecko's used to losing. Why would anybody? Well, we got young guys that are coming up together. Joe, what'd you win? I mean, I don't know. The one time the Jets were interesting is when they had a coach in Buddy Ryan or Rex Ryan that didn't take everybody's crap. My God, the level of stupid from athletes. You close your eyes and you say to yourself, these guys cannot be this stupid. And then they are. So we got to listen to them because Joe Klecco is now in the Hall of Fame. So Joe Klecco, kiss my backside. You're an idiot. All right. YouTube sensation, social media star turned boxer Jake Paul he didn't really get his brains beat out. I got to tell you, they said he was supposed to fight somebody, so he fought Tommy Fury, 8-round cruiserweight fight. Paul was pretty good. It went 8 rounds. It was a judge's decision. I don't know why people are on Paul. Here's the deal. Fury came out more aggressive. He brought the fight to Paul from the get-go. All right? Next thing you know, multiple warnings. Referee took a point from Paul because he was clinching. Well, you know what? Anybody that gets in the ring with these guys, I'm all in on. Anybody that gets in the ring with a crazy person, I'm cool with. You know, like my guy Greg Doyle. Greg Doyle, who I think is an absolute coward because you don't prey on young married women when you are a married man. But, I mean, in terms of punching, he's crazy enough to get in a ring with crazy guys, so I guess he's pretty tough. But, you know, there's a difference between being a coward as a human being and being in a ring, and anybody that gets in a ring with these guys is nuts. Well, I got to tell you. There you go. I don't know what that is, but I'm all in. That must be his girlfriend. But I'm all in on all of it. I'm 1,000% in on every single thing anybody wants to do. So good for Tommy Fury and good for Jake Paul. And if you are a fight fan, Jake Paul walks out of there with dignity. I'm sorry, he does. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a pitch clock in baseball. Fans hate it, but I'm going to tell you something. You can hate it right now. Just like most things that are great, myself included. You start out hating, and then you learn a little bit about them, and guess what? You start loving it. You're going to love the pitch clock. Why? Because it's going to get you out of baseball games in under 3 hours. It's going to get you out of baseball games 3.5 hours. It's going to be a thing of the past. You're going to hate it when your batter is jackassing around. Oh, I better get in the box, strike one. You're going to hate it when your pitcher gets called for something, but you're going to love it when a 1 o'clock start ends at 3:30. Wait, it's not 5 o'clock? And, you know, fat manager in uniform is going out there to make his 18th appearance. No, you're going to love the pitch clock. You're going to love the pitch clock. And you don't right now. You don't, but that's all right. Trust me on this. Just trust me. You're going to love it. You don't love it now. You're mad about your guy. You're going to freaking love it. All right. A lot of college hoops. The children of the corn, the cult of Iowa. Iowa's weird, man. I'm telling you. Iowa is weird. I'm just telling you. It's the weirdest place in America. Other than Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M is like literally a cult. I can't believe that there haven't been movies made about some kind of underlying craziness. It is insane. It is insane, the children of the corn being mad because their idiot coach, Fran McCaffrey, is staring down officials, acting like a fake tough guy. Dane Fife, former head coach, former assistant to Izzo. We're going to talk about Indiana beating Purdue. We're going to talk about Michigan State and how Izzo would react to the beatdown. And we're going to talk about Fran McCaffrey and the stupidity of the children of the corn.
Hey, guys, let's move on to probably the thing more people are talking about, unfortunately, for baseball than anything, which are the new rule changes. I'm going to start off by saying I think they all suck and are horrible. So I'm coming from that angle. And I know that, again, sounds like the old man get off my lawn theory, but the game, baseball was the only game, really the only game without a clock, the only game left without a clock. And now that is changing, I'm not happy about that. But we'll talk about, start off with the kind of the inconsequential ones, a bigger base. You know, here's the only complaint I have about that. Over 100 years ago when baseball was invented, it was mathematically perfect. The diamond was mathematically perfect. 90 feet between bases, 60 feet 6 inches from the mound to the plate, and I think 135 feet from home plate to second base. All of those things created the statistical Hall of Fames that we have. You take 6 inches away from the mound, you're going to have drastically different batting averages and career batting averages. You change the base pass, shorten or lengthen, you're going to have a dramatic impact. The base being a little bit bigger, I don't think is going to do absolutely anything for player safety. I think it's just going to look stupid. It'll give advertisers a bigger face on the bases, which you know is going to happen. If they wanted to truly take care of player safety, they would have done what softball did, put an alternate bag on the outside of the baseline and have the runner run to that instead of running to the same bag. So I think that's kind of a dumb one, and I don't think it's going to have much to do. The pitch clock. So as a pitcher, I can tell you this. The only pitchers in professional baseball that will be affected by the pitch clock are pitchers that suck. period. It's 20 seconds, I think, between return of the ball and the next pitch with nobody on. I think it's 30 seconds with runners on or whatever. That should never, ever come into play.
Arguably the two most beloved number 11s not named Isaiah Thomas in the history of Indiana basketball, coming at you right now to recap a Big Ten weekend that was unbelievable. Dane Fife joins us. You can follow him at Coach Dane Fife, and you will learn stuff and be entertained. I was at the Purdue game, Indiana game, and here's the deal. Here's what's happening with Indiana, Coach Fife. Indiana does not make mistakes down the stretch. They just don't. Coach Knight had that saying, victory favors the team making the fewest mistakes. Down the stretch, Indiana doesn't screw it up, Pfeiffer.
They definitely made the big buckets. We're going to dive right into it. Hutchifino was Purdue did not have an answer for the ball screen. Jalen Hutchifino getting down to his sweet spot, whether it's down the left-hand lane line or right-hand lane, right to the just above the charge line, and every time, buckets.
They didn't adjust it very well either. I'm sitting there watching. I'm explaining to my buddy, I know it's hard for Edey to move, but damn, at some point, you must come up and take that away and make them throw the ball to Jackson Davis. They never adjusted.
Well, it was interesting because after the game, Coach Painter talked about, okay, we wanted to see if we could force them left. You remember back in 93 or 94 when Duke upset the big dog, and they forced him left, made him get to the elbow and take the left-hand pull-up elbow shot. It looked like it was a mirror image of that, but Hutchifino wasn't getting the elbow shot; he was getting a 6-footer, and and at one point he hit it with his left hand. You could hear during a timeout in the second half, Coach Painter was talking about an adjustment. The adjustment was, he said, look, he's talking to Zach and the guard who was guarding Hutchifino. He said, he was talking to Edey, Coach Painter was, he said, once you get over the screen, veer it. What does veer mean by NBA speak, Coach?
Go ahead.
Okay. Veer means switch. And he said, but the guard has to call it. And you know what? I don't think we might have seen a switch, but it was too late. Essentially what Coach Painter was saying is, look, Zach, I need you up higher, one, and two, I need you to switch it if our guard gets knocked off. And what's the adjustment? I think the adjustment starts with this. If you're going to beat them, if you're going to go over the top and let Hutchifino get downhill right, you can't get clipped at all. And it looked like what happened to me was either Ethan Morton or Fletcher, whoever's guarding him, they try to force him left. But then once he got over the top and downhill right, the guard would get clipped, and it almost stopped the defending guard right in its tracks. And now you don't even have the challenge from behind when Hutchifino goes to pull up. You've got somebody coming from your backside to challenge you. It was just a P shot all night. And I don't know exactly what a P shot is, but it's a close shot.
Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah, no.
Thank you.
Sitting there, it just looked too easy. Like, it just looked too easy. And here's the other thing, and I said this actually when it happened. Purdue is rolling early, and they kept throwing the ball to Edey, and 3 straight times he got buckets. And I'm telling you, at the game, you could see Indiana was shrinking. They're confident, like,
they were.
Dang, we can't.
Yep.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, Braden Smith decides, I'm going to jack up a 3 in transition. And I turned to my buddy. I go, if Indiana comes back, that's the turning point in this entire game is in the first half. Yeah, because you just explain this to people. A big guy constantly scoring wears you down. It just wears the defense down.
Well, and I agree with you. And a guy with Zach Edey's size, they rotated guys, especially, primarily it was Jackson Davis and Race Thompson, but Indiana rotated guys. And those guys were strong. And here's what Indiana was willing to say. They were willing to say, look, Zach, you can catch the ball all night. We just want to make you catch it a step further out, okay? Primarily, anybody can see that. What I thought was that it was a really important thing that happened over the course of the game was in years past, Trace Jackson Davis, if he wasn't involved offensively, would shut down. He'd make a silly foul. He'd make a bonehead mistake and take himself out of the game. The maturity that Trace Jackson Davis showed throughout that game, trust me, I know because I've watched him, I've scouted him, and I've coached him. Okay? And what he did last night, he didn't score. And if the old Trace Jackson Davis would have shut down. This one kept guarding, kept doing his job defensively, kept setting good screens and getting Jalen Hood-Schifino downhill. And that was as big of a thing that took place, a big of a factor, as was Jalen Hood-Schifino getting downhill.
That's a great point because so many guys, you can come into that game and it's billed as me against Edey, right? And Edey's scoring, you're not. And let's be honest, players are human. They know what the hell they're doing or what they're not doing in a game. That's a great point, Dane. Expound on that a little bit. What do you think Jackson Davis' impact? Let's take before he even got a bucket. What was his impact defensively?
He's incredibly strong, first of all. His legs, his body, he just has a natural strength that the objective, once again, was Indiana wanted to meet Zach Edey high on the floor around the elbows. You saw Race Thompson get a foul at one point. They wanted to be physical, but ultimately beat Zach Edey down the floor, which isn't necessarily hard. The hard part is keeping him rooted out without getting a foul or not trying to get a steal. Okay, when the ball gets entered into Zach Edey, you don't get caught high side or low side getting a steal and getting a dunk. Essentially what you're trying to do is just and it takes a ton of strength, a ton of effort, and it's exhausting. And the best guy to do it is Trace Jackson Davis, and this is the first time I've seen him do it to the effectiveness that he has. Last year, he just took himself right out of both games by doing silly things. This year, really impressive. A lot of maturity shown. I want to say this. Go ahead.
No. Go. I have you on. Yeah.
Okay, my turn. I'm up. It's my turn it's my shot, my putt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought, and I would be interested in hearing your solution. The only thing that I thought Purdue didn't try, aside from a trap on the ball screen, was to put either a Caleb First or another one of those guys, bigger guys, on Trace Jackson Davis, okay, on a ball screen and hedge it and sit. Either you could sit Zach Edey under the rim. Now you're taking a small risk with Race Thompson being out on the perimeter. But what I would probably think would happen is Indiana, then with Zach Edey guarding Race Thompson, they have Race Thompson set the ball screen. You risk again the pick and pop, but either way, you're sitting Zach Edey under the rim almost, or in the paint to block that shot. Okay, to help on Hood-Schifino. What do you think?
I think you have to do that. I think you have to, as my dog sees a dog on TV and is screaming. I think you have to try that. I thought the whole time I'm not seeing one hedge. I know you want to make him left. I know that. I don't care. I go back to this always, Dane. Sitting with Coach Knight, Bill Parcells, Bill Belichick, and myself in our office, he goes, young man, when you coach, understand this. Understand that every game is organic. I don't care what you're used to doing. I don't care what you did a week ago. I don't care what you did last game. Your job as a coach is to figure out this particular game. And I thought Purdue did a bad job. Like right there, that's really good. Now, you see this on the screen, but I don't know what happened out of it. I would stayed and trapped freaking here, and I don't care. Yeah. In this particular game, go make a play, Trace Jackson Davis. Go hit a three. Race Thompson.
Yeah.
I fine, but the guy with the ball was killing. He was killing, and you got to do everything, Dane, everything to adjust to it.
Well, I think Indiana was willing to say, look, okay, we're not going to trade. We're going to give you the Trace Jackson Davis points. We're going to give you his 30, and you can have him, or he's not going to score tonight. And said, now stop this. And I go back to you mentioned it the other day where Michigan State loses to Middle Tennessee State in 2016, and I was part of that Michigan State team, and we were scoring. Our scoring was fine. We were giving up threes and giving up drives to the rim. And it goes to this game. You've got to stop what's hurting you or pick one or the other. Well, Purdue picked, Trace Jackson Davis isn't scoring. I think you and I could agree with that. All right. But now you've opened the floodgates to something else. All right. You got to come up with a solution. And that's something that hindsight's an easy one, but breaking it down, I'm not sure if you and I our answers would have worked, but I think we can both agree, and we are that you've got to get up on that ball screen with your big.
You've got to. Last thing, I also thought Indiana's defense made Purdue's perimeter very uncomfortable. I've always said this. You can get hot defensively. You were a great defender, Big Ten Defender of the Year. You know when you've got the other team. Now, from an offensive standpoint, honest to God, being at the game, Dane, you know this, you can see body language. You can see confidence being at the game, right, that maybe you can't see on TV. And it was, I'm telling you, every time I saw Smith or even Lawyer late, they may have made one, but they were not very confident. And Indiana took that and took their heart. I want to get to something else. You mentioned being on Coach Izzo's staff. Obviously, I don't know if you had it happen to you. Shoot, I told a story of being down 13 with 1:03 to go, taking the lead with 3 seconds to go, and Jamie Bosley hit a shot to beat us from half court. But every coach experiences on both sides of this. How would Izzo respond? What would the bus ride be home? What would the plane ride be home after what happened at Iowa?
I watched Coach Izzo do something I've never seen him do. And he was clapping for his players at the end of the game. And it was an authentic, it was something I've never seen him do. And weird. I think, and then reading what he said after the game, he just, he put it on himself. He put it on him and his staff and said, we got to do a better job. And I don't know whether he believes it or not, but I thought his clapping spoke volumes, and it wasn't phony, because there's no reason to do it then. I just thought, he's like, guys, keep working. All right, I'll take this one. And he probably did. And he took it in the paper, and they probably made a ton of mistakes. Michigan State clearly missed a switch at the end to give the tie that went into overtime. But I can tell you, Coach always has a saying, when and my buddies and I, the Michigan State guys, we talk about this all the time, but it says, when I'm mad at you guys, that's one thing. But when I'm mad at myself, that's when it's about to get ugly. And I think that was a moment there when he was clapping for his players after A.J. Hoggard made a free throw, that he's mad at himself. And I wouldn't want to be part of any of that situation right now.
Yeah, I used to talk to Coach Knight about that. I go, you're just mad at yourself. I go, you're mad at us, fine, but you're just mad at yourself. I mean, I get it. Yeah. What did you think of the latest FranCon 10, where he went over and Kelly Pfeiffer and he got a little stare down going? What was your take on that one?
I'm always for coaches, but I think Kelly Pfeiffer's a good referee, and I'm partial to referees. I didn't think Kelly Pfeiffer used to be a good referee when he broke in, but that was probably 10 years ago. And he's learned to communicate. He's got a good disposition. He talks to the players. He's an NCAA tournament referee. I don't know if Kelly said, Fran, stop looking at me or something, quit staring at me, and Fran came over and did it. But there's and I think I said this on another show of yours, the Michigan State athletic basketball Hall of Fame, the new front end they put onto the Breslin Center has a piece of the old basketball court. It's a big rectangular shot of the free throw lane, and there's a huge dent in it. And the dent is from Fran slapping a chair, and the chair got some airtime and put a big nick into the basketball court. And I think it should be marked. That was a moment where it was, maybe it was the chair. I don't know if that's FranCon 10, but it was at least FranCon 9.
You know, Pfeiffer handled it well. Like, they're not going to fight, right? And John Adams told me, he said, look, there's two schools of thought. One, you stand there and you let him act like an idiot. Two, you give him a technical and then you watch him explode, you know. The NBA has it easy, John said. He goes, look, there is something called like honor the game rule. You act like that, you give him a technical, you say another word, you give him a technical, and you kick him out, and you walk away to diffuse the situation. But I thought Pfeiffer handled it really, really well. I do. I thought he handled it great. I did.
Yeah, I don't know if that's protocol where you take 2 steps forward once the second horn sounds to bring a team out of a timeout. But I still respected him stepping forward and forced Coach McCaffrey into doing something. And I am thankful for his sake and Kelly Pfeiffer's sake. You don't want to see that happen, especially because I love the Big Ten Conference. And I think the refs take a lot of crap, which is unwarranted. But I do think I'm glad an assistant came and pulled Coach McCaffrey away.
Well, once Pfeiffer took 2 steps, here's what I saw. Here's the choice, right? They're not going to fight. What are you going to do, start throwing hands, right? So McCaffrey on the 2 steps, all right, I made my point. Now I'm going to go back to the bench. And, you know, we used to love it, man. I mean, we couldn't wait. Bart Fox would be in my ear. FranCon coming. I got the cameras on him. FranCon getting ready to go nuts. We're at 3. We're at 3. You know, we're at 3.
Bart.
Here's 5. You know, because you knew. All right, Big Ten, Purdue gets the championship. I'm going to say this. I don't get to sit at the big boy table. You do. You went to the Final Four championship game. But I was on a team that won a Big Ten title. I got to tell you, I have no idea. I know we beat Purdue at home. I do not know if we beat them at Purdue. I understand Purdue fans are sad. They lost. They got swept. Indiana, coaches, or we're not the old Indiana, blah, 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 blah. But I got to tell you, pretty good consolation prize for the weekend, winning a Big Ten championship outright like Purdue did. Pretty good achievement.
Yeah, I wonder if they cut down the nets. I would have. I think we've done that. I think we've done that before. Lost and cut down the nets.
Indiana.
Look, Coach Painter and his staff. Coach Painter is they'll make adjustments. I think they'll watch this show and they'll make the proper adjustment, right, Coach? I do think they'll make the adjustments. They recognize that they got exposed. The ball screen, their ability to defend the ball screen, I think, will be a great learning tool for them moving forward, because they finally or really got beat on a national on the national stage. And I think that there's probably a staff meeting this morning that's going to really dig in and try to get some things figured out. And they still have a really good team. I also think you made a great point. You made a great tweet during the game Saturday, was that essentially Purdue is, this isn't the exact tweet, exactly the tweet, but Purdue is rattled. They're rushing shots, perhaps. What was it? They're being sped up. The guys that are normally making shots are just shooting bricks. Something to that effect. But to me, that's the main thing they've got to get fixed, is they've got to find a good, safe half-court offense that keeps their guards involved, that alleviates the pressure besides going inside, that can get them a bucket or two, that can get them easy shots.
Anybody in the Big Ten, as you look at, Houston and Alabama and UCLA and Arizona, whatever, anybody in the Big Ten can win national championship? Anybody you think? Anybody
besides Purdue?
Do you think Purdue can win national championship?
I do. I still think the matchups are critical, but I think once Purdue gets there, they'll be playing at another level. I still think Indiana has incredible talent, whether they have Xavier Johnson or not. I think Trace Jackson Davis is an incredible talent. I think Jalen Hood-Schifino, I've thought all along, is an incredible talent. I think you've got Race Thompson, who has been through the wars. He's got limitations, but he also has strengths that I think the maturity and the ability to execute a game plan, execute a scouting report, play smart, do his job. I think they have it. One guy we don't talk about is Trey Galloway. The more Indiana turns Trey Galloway, the more they turn him loose, as long as he can stay out of foul trouble, the more effective Indiana is. And it's something that we wanted to do last year more when I was on staff, is to turn Trey Galloway loose. It looks like he's getting a little more leeway, which is great. I think you continue to give him a lot more. Trey, go play, do your thing. I'm giving you 40 minutes. I'd love to see that because I think he can only help him.
You made the point, and I don't think this is a bad thing. You made the point that when Xavier Johnson got hurt, it was going to help Indiana because the ball was going to be in Hood-Schifino's hands.
I think, and I learned this at Michigan State, our two best teams featured this. The least amount of talent in my 10 years, our two Final Four teams, let's put it this way, the least amount of talent, and we always had either one or two key players that got hurt. Because, and what I think it does is it shrinks the lineup. Like, as a coach, you want to keep a lot of people happy. You want to give a lot of certain people confidence, maybe on the bench. It's hard. It is hard to play. Coach K used to play, Izzo used to say, how does he do it? Coach K used to play 6 guys, maybe 5 in some cases. And there's other teams out there that do it. That's the best way to play to me. But it's hard to do because you're trying to develop your bench. You're trying to develop your young players. And I think when Xavier Johnson went down, what it did was allowed some of these other players, like a Hood-Schifino, like a Galloway, even a Trace, to even a Miller Kopp, once they figured out how to get Miller shots without X on the floor, it gave other guys confidence. It got other guys playing. And most importantly, it shrunk the bench. It went from here to here, and it shrunk your bench.
Last thing before I let you go. Is there a team that you like watching right now? Are you a Kansas Jayhawk fan?
I am a Kansas Jayhawk fan.
What do you got?
This is your Prada, man. It's your Prada. It's your Prada cologne. That is your cologne.
Oh, man.
That should be the official Dan Dakich cologne. You got some on this morning?
I do. I have a meeting after, so I put a little Svitz on. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So, look, I went to watch Kansas practice. I went and watched Kansas practice last Thursday and Friday. And I'll just say this. What I thought Kansas was, they are. But what I didn't know is the amount of off-the-court training that Bill Self and his staff do in terms of culture. They have what Fred Quarterbaum was talking to me, who's a great guy. Fred's one of the best. But Fred was talking to me about how they take culture classes, and culture classes are classes that essentially create the Kansas basketball accountability aspect before players even get there, and then when they're there during the summer. It's an 8-week curriculum that there's no grade. It's just you have to take that in order to understand what makes and keeps Kansas basketball moving forward and at an elite level. And I was so impressed with that. And I was so impressed. They don't know me very well. I was so impressed of the time they gave a guy that doesn't have a job, a lowly assistant. I just really appreciated that. So now I'm a Jayhawk fan.
Yeah. Kansas basketball culture classes about their own culture. That's very cool.
Yep. Really impressed with it.
That's awesome. I may make the entire city of Indianapolis take a Dan Dakich history class just so they learn the greatness that is.
Yeah.
No, I tell you what we might do. We might do an Indiana basketball number 11 class.
Ooh.
The history of the number 11 in Indiana. That'd be the most, you know what that would be? If you made it available to co-eds, it would be the most taken class by sorority gals and fraternity boys, because men want to be like us, and of course women want to learn about us. There you go. There you go. Yeah. All right.
I would agree with that. I'd agree with this too. Imagine if we had this on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did I just break a rule?
Actually, what? There's no rules. There's no rules. It's streaming. We can do whatever. Yeah. No, we can do. I can do the show naked. Be great. All right, I gotta go. You know I got on. You know who I got on next. I got Coach. Hey, Seth Greenberg next. Coach.
Never say the word great. Never, ever. You're great. There's only a couple greats.
Control your controllables. You can only control your controllables. That's it. Control your controllables. I'm going to call you after the show today. I want to do a.
I'm doing your own
do something
show
with you.
I'm doing your own show so holler at me between 11 and noon. Let's go.
All right. I'll be on the phone with you around 11:15. Thank you, my friend. That's the great Dane Fife, ladies and gentlemen. Now I did not know that. That's really smart. There was a sad news in college basketball. Terry Holland, a longtime basketball coach, great basketball coach, better man of the University of Virginia. He set the culture of the University of Virginia, whether it was Ralph Sampson, Jeff Lamp, Othell Wilson, Kent Needlin, who passed away as well. But Terry Holland passed away. Seth Greenberg, you see him on game day. Seth coached with Terry Holland. Seth Greenberg coming up. We're going to talk ball, me and the coach. We're going to talk ball. We're going to talk ball. Yeah. Ball. We'll be right back.
College football's in trouble. There's a lot of people trying to keep it from happening.
I think it's a general consensus across the college football landscape. We want to play football.
College football is a huge part of the fall. It's a huge part of Americana itself.
It just really felt like people in the country needed college football to just feel a little sense of normal.
Big news from the Big Ten as the conference releasing its 10-game football schedule.
We go home thinking there's going to be practice the next day. Everybody gets a text, stay home, everything's canceled.
Big Ten fall football season has been canceled.
We just believe collectively there's too much uncertainty.
I guess what I'm trying to understand, though, Kevin, is that was the same position you had 6 days ago.
The Big Ten is an unmitigated disaster.
There was a ton of confusion. There was presidents saying one thing, there was coaches saying another.
Players had to be silent, coaches had to be silent, ADs had to be silent.
People said, how does what you just did make any sense?
And nobody really knew what the heck happened when they voted to cancel the season.
You make this huge historical announcement, and then Kevin Warren never does a press conference to explain it. It was like a masterclass in how not to handle a crisis.
The word really that was lacking in all of this is transparency.
It felt like a lot of stuff was happening behind closed doors.
Even today, we still don't know what occurred.
So you don't tell us parents, that's fine, but you're not telling the young men that it affects.
We have to make a decision to save the season. What about the history books? What about the rivalry games? What about Paul Bunyan's axe? How is that not going to go to a team this year?
This is a failure of epic magnitude. The Big Ten presidents and leaders should be held accountable for the disastrous decisions that they're making.
Then the commissioner doubles down, saying his decision will not be revisited.
And that's the point. It felt like a war was declared on the Big Ten and Kevin Warren.
Everything turned political.
Because if this is medical, then you would have stopped the game of football a long time ago.
I think the Big Ten leaders will tell you that they probably made a mistake in hindsight.
If I had the chance to do it all over last year, I would make the same decisions that we made.
Seth Greenberg is ready. He will join us in a moment. He just told me he is ready. And away we'll go. But real quick, stock up and stock down. I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, Purdue fans, stock up. I only had a great time, not a good time. As soon as I walked in, people were taking pictures. The great Lou Stefanovic, who is the father of Sasha, former player, and I grew up playing together. We're hugging, we're having a beer. Went to our seats, drinking beer on the side, in press row, people coming up, taking pictures, go to the bathroom, people. It's just an absolute blast, and I know they were disappointed. I know it didn't work. I know things didn't happen in the manner that they wanted to. But, hey, Seth says there's no text to him on the link. He needs the link. I love that picture, by the way. I absolutely love it because I have said I did that. What degree do you want? I don't know. Telecom, and I took one. No, it's true story. It's true story. So if you guys could text Seth, that'd be great. True story. I got a degree in telecom. Why? Well, because there was no math. And I really didn't even go to class, to be honest. You read the book, you write a paper. That's why I took it. And I went to enough class, but I didn't go every time. But Purdue fans, you rock. I know you're disappointed. I wore black. I didn't know it was a blackout. I didn't need my brain. Somebody said, well, Dan, why didn't you wear red? I go, I'm 60 years old. I don't need the hell beat out of me. I don't need to get beat up. You know what I'm saying? Who needs that? I think I'm tough, but I know I'm 60. I ain't tough. So God bless you, Purdue fans, and thank you for an awesome, awesome, awesome time. Drinking beers, taking pictures. It was fantastic. Stock up. David Hookstead, Bobby Barak, Ian Miller, Clay Travis, Armando, Alejandro, Trey Wallace, Glenn, you name it, man. Gun show. You know why? I'm going to tell you why. Because we ain't afraid around here. We're not. We ain't afraid around here. Everybody's afraid. Everybody's a damn coward. Everybody's so damn afraid, right? I mean, oh my God. They might get mad at us. Oh my God. All right, really? We're just going to tell you. We are not messing around. We're just going to tell you how it is. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. But the entire staff, we all have different opinions on things. We do. We all have different opinions. Fine. But the entire staff, everybody involved, has been all over this what's the right word? Blank show that is Alabama basketball, and everybody else is afraid. Everybody else is afraid, except Seth Greenberg. He's not afraid of nothing. But anyway, we'll get back to stock up, stock down. But OutKick, you guys are killing it. Seth, my condolences. I know Terry Holland was a friend, a mentor, you name it, he was it. Sad news, the passing of Coach Holland.
Well, to me, I tell people, of all the people, can't hear me? You can't hear me?
I got you.
All right, of all the people in my life, including my parents probably, Coach Holland had the greatest influence on me. He basically hired me when I got let go to University of Pittsburgh. And he's been my mentor. And I always say everyone needs a mentor. Everyone needs someone to invest in them. And Coach Holland invested in me. And I have never made a major decision since that year at Virginia without consulting him, including asking my wife to marry me. And it sounds silly, but it's true. Every time I changed a job, anytime I had an issue with my children that, I wanted some insight and wise advice from, Coach Holland was the first person I called up. He gave me an opportunity to continue to stay in coaching. But more importantly, he invested in me as a person. And I'm forever grateful for that. And I'm not alone. He impacted so many people, so much more than a basketball coach. He was one of the great human beings I've ever known.
Seth, I did not know him. I met him a number of times. Never really, but he reminded me, physically actually, but just the way he carried himself, of Lute Olson. When you're around Coach Holland, you elevate yourself, is how I described it. Yeah, that's you don't want to let him down, for sure. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. You want to carry yourself in a manner that you do not want to disappoint him. And watching him, he was a fascinating watch because fiercely competitive. I mean, everyone's a gentleman coach and all that jazz, and he was a gentleman. But I mean, he was fiercely competitive. I remember still sitting on the bench, the first tough, non-guarantee game we're playing, and we're not getting a great whistle. Hank Nichols is on the game. Coach Holland and Hank Nichols didn't have a famous relationship, and there was a bad call, and he was hot. He covered his mouth, and he laid it out. He laid it out. No different than you would or I would. But no one heard it. Maybe the official heard it, but he was covered his mouth, and he let Hank Nichols and then 2 seconds, as soon as he was done, he took his hands off his mouth, and he just smiled. That smile that only Coach Holland could have. And I said, goodness gracious, that was as good as it gets right there, because everyone thinks, hey, all right, next play. And he just laid out Hank Nichols. I mean, it was great. It was great. But great man. Miss is just a wonderful person. I mean, they were at Ella's wedding. He meant the world to me and means the world to me in terms of just how I conduct my business on a daily basis. Yeah, no, I totally, I get that. Condolences, my friend. Also, Kent Needleman. I know that Rick Carlisle called me. Rick Carlisle called me the other day and said, hey, I just want to tell you, we were talking about Kenton stealing the ball from you, but it was all fun and it was just lighthearted and blah, 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 blah. And you know what? Kent Needleman, who by all accounts, and you would know this, great dude, historical figure in Virginia basketball, passed a few weeks ago as well, or a month ago. Yeah, just crippling. It's just such a young guy. I mean, Kenton he had a heart of gold. A heart of gold. I mean, if you didn't like Kent Needleman, that was your problem. Brilliant student, great teammate, walk-on that earned a scholarship, played on the JV team. I was one of the guys that did some of Kenton's individual workouts. If it wasn't a dunk, I was chasing the ball all over the gym. I can tell you that much. But he never had a bad day. He always had that unbelievable warm smile on his face, and he was loved, absolutely loved by his teammates. Seth, let's get to the weekend. I'm going to go first with the stare down. Our guy Fran went to FranCon 10. A lot of guys are asking me. I got 3 or 4 coaches, a couple assistants, and a head coach say, what are they going to do about it? He's out of his mind, Seth. Fred is a really good coach, and obviously this has been a very hard year with obviously what Patrick's gone through and everything, but he should have gotten thrown out of the game, plain and simple. I mean, you can't do that. I mean, there's a right and wrong. You can be upset with the way the game's been officiated. You got the first tactical. I mean, you're standing out away from your team. Go coach your team. I'm good friends with Fran. I respect what he's done and the consistency that he won at Iowa. Patrick and Connor are
great young men, so it's a reflection of how they've been raised. But this is ridiculous. This is a joke. Come on, now. Enough's enough. I mean, you got thrown out the game before. Coach your team. I guess it worked though, because that was one of the most amazing comebacks I've ever seen. But I mean, the manner in which he carried himself there is unbecoming to the profession. I mean, you just don't do that. I mean, look, I've done a lot of things I regret. You've done a lot of things you regret. But you're looking at it as a prism now. You know that I'm sure he's been talked to by the administration saying, Fran, you've got to compartmentalize what you're doing, and the most important thing is your team. But this was just really just wrong and almost clownish in a lot of ways. I'm surprised. Like, I don't know if the official there should have thrown him out. I think one of the other officials, if they've seen it, had a chance to see it, I think they should have tossed him.
Yeah, John Adams said there's two schools of thought here. John, the longtime head of officials, he says there's one way you let him act like an idiot. If you do whistle him up, then he's going to act like more of an idiot. Or you just toss him. John felt like the NBA rule was what's the right word? John thought that the NBA rule of I forget the integrity of the game or conducting yourself in an honorable manner would have taken place or the referee gives him a tee, walks away, you're gone. And it's that simple. I thought Kelly Pfeiffer handled it well, and I thought when Kelly took 2 steps towards him, that ended it because you're not going to fist fight, right? And right. Fran knew at that time he was going to get kicked out. So I thought Pfeiffer handled it pretty good.
Yeah, I thought he did too. I just think that, again, like Fran is a friend. I admire what he's done at Iowa.
Right.
But, you get thrown out the game before. You get the technical in this game. Come on, man. Enough's enough. And again, I'm not absolving myself. I've done a lot of stupid things when I was coaching. So, I just think that what message you sending your team? We're supposed to be setting an example, and I set a lot of bad examples in my life. But I mean, this one here was just it was almost sophomoric.
It was like there are some, hey, look, he's getting mad, he's getting his team. And I guess you could say it worked. I don't know. Iowa, the children of the corn are losing their mind on me. I don't know, Seth.
I mean, here's the deal. It worked because let's face it, they made 5 consecutive 3-point shots. It worked because Michigan State missed 2 free throw blockouts. It worked because, Tom, I talked to Tom this weekend. He's sick to his stomach. He's so disappointed in it, yet, I think Tom Izzo's gotten every ounce of whatever out of his team. And considering everything his team's been with and the manner in which he represented that school and the coaching profession after tragedy on their campus, I lived through it. I thought what he did and how he handled it and how his team handled it was just it was moving to me.
Me too. There's leadership and then there's leadership. And Izzo, I think, you are the El Hague putting us two together again. But I love the man, and I think what he did was real leadership. Last thing, then I want to get to other things, but this was John Adams, the head of officials, text or tweet here, and I want your opinion. While I understand there are 2 schools of thought, don't toss him, 1. Let him be an ass or dump him and deal with the ensuing volcano. John says, in my opinion, you got to dump him. The NBA's Respect for the Game initiative would cover this behavior. They would tee him, and if it's his second, he's simply gone. So,
I agree with John, and he's a lot wiser than I am.
Yeah. What's your take on this whole Alabama, Brandon Miller, Nate Oats? Where are you at with all this? I haven't talked to you.
Yeah, first of all, it's Nate Oats' first interview. I guess it was a Tuesday. Was regrettable to say the least. Whether he's ambushed or not, we all know that. Look, you go into a media room, you get asked a question, you're not prepared to answer. It's real simple. You pass it off on to your authorities and say, any questions regarding this situation will be handled by the athletic director or university council. Boom. Having said that, I said this on game day this week, and I stand by it. You can agree with it, disagree with it. It's real simple. The university has got to make a decision, all right? And to me, the decision is real simple. If Brandon Miller was Brandon Miller, not the basketball player, the sociology student or the psychology student or whatever student he would be, and the incident happened 5 weeks ago, I'm not talking about prior to South Carolina again, 5 weeks ago, if you would have let that student back on campus to continue to be enrolled in student activities, then you know what? You play. Plain and simple. That's it. That's the decision. That's the process you're going through. If the answer is no, he would have been suspended from school and he would have been taken off campus and dismissed from the institution, then obviously you don't play it. So if they, in good conscience, feel like if that was a normal student under those circumstances, and yes, the student does have rights, along with the university guidelines, and like we all dealt with on a university, judicial affairs on campus. Judicial affairs would have allowed him to continue to maintain his continue to be matriculated at the university. Then I have no problem. They're the only ones that can answer that question. No one else. Just because he's a basketball player shouldn't mean he should be treated ever different. We hear everyone talk about treat him just like students. So if you would have treated him just like a student, that student would have been enrolled on campus and he would have been able to stay on campus and stay in classes, then you know what? I got no problem. That's a decision they had to make.
You know, one of the things that I've said, and I've said I would have fired Nate Oats, but again, people can agree or disagree. You got 3 kids involved in a murder and you're responsible for bringing them to campus. That's a real problem for me. I always felt like I had a responsibility. I learned this from Coach Knight, to bring dudes on campus that are going to be a part of the campus community. It's one of the reasons at Indiana under Knight, we always stayed in the middle of campus, in the dorm to be a part of the campus community. One thing I am disappointed in is, the pat down thing, I understand it. It's entering the octagon, but there just seems to be no empathy here for the victims and their families. And I disagreed with Jay Billis. The rights thing, if all of a sudden you suspend him, well, you're protecting the university and not the rights of the player. I got to tell you, Seth, in my world, I'm protecting the university. I'm protecting the workers. I'm protecting the students. I'm protecting everybody involved, the faculty. I know Jay's talking about it more from a legal side, but if I got to do one or the other, ain't nothing wrong with protecting the institution, is there?
No, there isn't. I mean, that's the decision the university had to make. And look, that decision on Brandon Miller, Nate Oats had no say in that matter. You know, and I know when it comes to situations like that, then it comes down to University Council, the Board of Regents, the president, and the administration. I mean, and even the athletic director is taken out of that situation because like you said, it's the image of the university. I think they've got to look in the mirror and say that, they say, if Greg Burns says that I made the decision that was right in relation to the information that we gathered, if information comes up that's different. I have been around that kid multiple times. And again, who knows? I mean, he did 2 things during the season that has nothing to do with this incident. I'm not absolving him of anything, but Alabama-Auburn game, big rivalry game. 2 guys get knocked down. Brandon Miller's one of them. Pretty physical confrontation in terms, not dirty, just 2 guys, get caught up. And Brandon Miller turned around and picked up the kid from Auburn. And like that resonated with me. Like it was a weird thing, but I was going like, man, like why is he doing that? Yeah. Yeah. So, but look, it is a tragic situation. A young woman's life has been lost. A son no longer has his mother. But my thing is, once again, we always spend all our time talking about, well, you got to treat the athletes no different than the students. And if that's the case, then the university has to make that decision and in good conscience say, if this was a normal student on our campus and this was the situation, that student would still be enrolled on campus and be free to participate in any activities on campus. They decided that, so he's playing.
Yeah. No, I get it. Hey, you surprised my Hoosiers did what they did Saturday?
That was really impressive. That was impressive to me that Trace Jackson Davis doesn't get a bucket and they win They win in the first half and they win. What was impressive to me is that Trace Jackson Davis continued to play and do other things in that game that helped his team win. Let's face it, Purdue's guards in their losses are shooting 29% from the 3-point line, and they were worse actually the other day. League play. Let me ask you this: and you played and coached in that league. You understand it better than anyone I know. League play is different. There are no secrets. You kind of have an understanding of how to play against a certain team. Do you think it'll be easier for Purdue when they get to the NCAA tournament because no one has seen anyone like Zach Edey and no one has a feel for Purdue in general and how to play against them? Or do you think, you know what, they got scars and their scars are starting to be exposed?
Seth, I think a little bit of both. You know the difference watching a game in person and on TV, right? You can get a feel of body language, that kind of thing. I feel like this. I know a lot of people are talking about Hood Schifino, and they should. I mean, it's unbelievable, right? But Indiana's defense took those. Indiana's defense took those two guards and shook them. They got shook. Like, Seth, you and I have talked about this over the years. Guy gets an open shot, but he's not comfortable in the offense. It's not a great shot. You're surprised to get a good shot. And Indiana's defense, I think, is the untold story. So let me answer your question. Of all the teams that have a chance at a national championship, everybody always talks about matchups. I think if there are really good, athletic, quick guards that Purdue is playing against, I don't care. I think it's a problem for Purdue. I honestly do, Seth. Those guys can be beat off the dribble. I know Edey's back there. And those kids from Purdue, I think, are a little bit tired, Seth. Those freshman guards, they're playing a lot of minutes. They're getting attacked every night. So I think a matchup of quickness could really hurt Purdue, regardless of, stopping Edey.
I agree with you. I mean, the people have gotten up and underneath them and kind of disrupted and pushed. And let's face it, if you can do that, you push the offense out another step, which makes the entry pass a little bit longer. That step in three is a little bit longer. The ball doesn't move as quickly. No, I agree with you. And I think that the team that's emerged in the Big Ten that might be up to, I'm not sure they will, but has the best chance of breaking the drought is Indiana. And I'll tell you what, the Player of the Year award is not over yet. And I thought it was Zach. Look, he's amazing because he's an athlete, a 7'5", a 4 athlete playing basketball. He's an athlete. I mean, the piece that our people did on him this weekend, seeing him skate, seeing him throw baseball, and seeing him as a blocker in volleyball. I mean, he's not just like, look, he's going over the right shoulder, he's going over the left shoulder. He searches across the lane. He has pretty good feet. I liked when they played him as a center fielder defensively and let Caleb first guard Trace Jackson Davis. I thought that was, in the first game, I thought that was a good move by Matt. But Indiana is showing, I think it sounds silly. I'm a big addition by subtraction guy. And the addition by subtraction to me is Xavier Johnson. Unfortunately, because I hate when kids get hurt, but it opened up a door for Jalen Hood-Schifino to have a greater impact. No different when Xavier Wheeler got hurt at Kentucky. And now Cal puts the ball into Cason Wallace's hands. And you see a different team. You got a better perimeter defender. You got a guy that can make a shot. You got a guy that can play the contact. You got a guy that, basically you're not playing 5-on-4. So I think those two injuries for those two programs that are the bluer blood programs that have kind of flipped their season a little bit, I think those injuries opened up opportunities and guys that basically embraced the opportunities.
Dane Fife was on before you, and we talked about that exact thing. Dane told me that when it happened. He said, you know what? He said, I don't want a guy to get hurt. He recruited Xavier, all that stuff. He goes, but I got to tell you, it's not a bad thing for Indiana because the ball is going to be in Galloway, and it's going to be in Hood Schifino's hands. Last thing before I let you go, where are you guys this week?
We are going to the University of North Carolina, the team that is trying to they're right now in Seth Greenberg position. They're squarely on the bubble. I don't even think they're on the bubble. I mean, got them first 4 out. You got 1 quad win and 9 and 10 chances. I don't see. I think they got to beat Duke. I think they got to get to the finals of the ACC tournament. Now, when I say that Saturday, I'm sure it'll be warm. It'll be greeted with warm seashells and balloons, as Al McGuire would say. But I mean, if they were anyone else, look, I won 5, 6, and 7. I think quad 1 wins back in the day and didn't get in the tournament. So if things are that sideways, I don't know, but they're a long way. But here's the deal, Dan, and everyone says it's a business. Well, it's a business for ESPN too, and it's a property that we own, Duke, North Carolina, and it'll do a 2.4 rating, which will be probably the highest rated game of the season. And that's the truth.
Look, pal. Right in the middle of that, for those of you that don't know, there was a thread of bitter ex-ACC coach right there that came through. Duke and Carolina get preferential treatment. That little thin line was right there. I heard it.
Well, I'm not backing off it now. I mean, I look at my resumes. We beat Duke, Carolina, Maryland, and other good teams in a year.
I remember.
But you know what? Look, if anyone thinks, and this is 100% true, if anyone thinks that there aren't relationships within the room where the NCAA tournament bracket is selected, look, it's human nature, and I don't even blame the people. It's human nature. All right. It might be you had a cross experience with an AD or a coach or whatever, or you have a little bit of a dog in the race. And people say, well, there's no names next to the. I've memorized the quad 1 and quad 2 and quad 3, quad 4 wins. I could look at a blind resume now, as much time as I've spent looking at this stuff, and I know who's who. It's just the way it is. But I mean, I also think they do it's really hard. There's there's such a fine line between being in and being out. There really is just such a fine line that it's easy. You can't make a mistake.
Seth, my last conversation was in the basement down there in Building 4 with my last conversation with Coach Knight. It was just me and him, and he was telling me how there needs to be more coaches on the NCAA selection committee, and I said, I think that's crap, because all coaches, particularly, and I pointed to him, I said, particularly you, hold grudges against people. He didn't really like that. I said, let me give you an example. You don't like me and I don't like you. This is my last conversation with Knight. I said, you don't like me, I don't like you. So if my resume was up there against Murray Bartow, who was a GA for you for 2 years, you would 100% go with Murray Bartow because you don't like me. I think we got to keep coaches off of it because they can't even drive themselves in a car. He did not like that. He walked away, and that ended my career with Robert Montgomery Knight. But I agree. Coaches are petty with that crap. ADs are petty with that crap.
No, I agree. I agree with you. But it's also human. There's just a human element to it, Dan. I mean, and that's just look. I mean, I can be bitter all I want. Unfortunately, I mean, I get to do what I'm doing now. But I all those years, and there was one athletic director on the committee, Ron Wellman, who I didn't get along with, and I think that that might have impacted. And it's so petty because he can hurt me all he wants, but I had kids that were the winningest players at Virginia Tech history over a 5-year period, and 4 of those years, those kids didn't get a chance to play in the NCAA tournament. And in my opinion, that's wrong because, Malcolm Delaney and Jeff Allen and Deron Washington and Eric Green, they were basically void of an opportunity to compete, and they were great kids who all did very, very well on and off the court, and that's my bitterness. I've been to the NCAA tournament. I was an assistant at Virginia going to the Final Four. I went when I was at Pitt. I went when I was at Long Beach State. I went when I was at Virginia Tech. But it still bothers me because I love those kids because they committed to me. And I would have loved to see them get the opportunity to compete in the NCAA tournament. So it is what it is.
I'm with you, brother. Great stuff. Again, my condolences to you. I know how close you were with Coach Holland. And thanks for the time. This is a blast, man. It's always a blast talking ball with you.
Hey, we'll do it again. Well, let's do it as we championship week to the Final Four. Just like the old
by
days.
The way,
greatest podcast in
by
history.
the way, I watched your Bald Men on Campus show the other day. It was on TV. AC. Too much Billis. Not enough Greenberg. Too much Billis. We need more Greenberg. Thanks, my man.
Help.
Have a great day.
Hey, brother.
Hey, brother. I love that man. I do. I love his family. I love everything about him. All right. We're going to stock up, stock down tomorrow. It is 11 o'clock. It is time for us to go. But before we go, huge shout out, big day, Senator BS, the president, Sean Black, Scott Waters, Ross Campbell, OutKick Lick, John Datsman, Jennifer Always, Iron Man, David Renard, I'm on it, Dan Denston, Brad Buffington, Boris Balkin, Barry Ferguson, my man, the Cashman Bets. Go to thecashmanbets.com, get some info on who to bet on. Hey, have a great afternoon, and thank you for being here. That was a blast.